All right, it is finally Friday. It's been a long week, right? Hope you guys are doing well. With meteorologist Brian Good. Welcome to another hybrid version of the blog, snow and rain talk. I think it's missing this sleet talk, but no sun talk. At least in the blog. Although we got bright, beautiful sun out there today. I'll show you proof of that here in a second. It is really nice out there, but I don't see any day that looks like today. Maybe for a while. So I would try to get any errands you need to do, or whether you have dinner plans. Certainly it's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. If you have Valentine's Day plans, dinner plans, today is actually, and this evening too, will be really nice to take advantage of this, because next week, the weekend's a mess. You guys know that. Next week, though, is going to be tough to get through. More on that coming up here in just a second. I'll go into a little more detail. But let's get right into the snowboard, because there's a lot to cover. And as is always the case with me, I'm running out of time. So let's get right into it. Snowboard's easy today because it's really just the two main items we've had pretty much all week, right? The snow showers will come into play as we head into Sunday. Now, what I've decided to do is just group late Tuesday all the way into Thursday is one setup, because it's multiple waves coming through to give us periods of snow. I don't see anything major on the snow right now, but snow ratios are going to be high. So it could all add up, and it could cause some sick roads. And we'll see if we end up with a bigger system or not as we get closer. It's just too early to tell that, but the pattern is certainly still prime for snowy weather and very cold for next week. All right, we'll get back around to that. But here's that sun I wanted to promise you guys. Beautiful right now. If you look carefully, you can see some of the clouds in southern Kentucky. Clouds will be filling in later on this afternoon. So we're not going to hold on to this all day, but I do think we'll hold on to the majority of the daylight hours today. A little bit of the opposite of yesterday, where we saw late day sun yesterday at the last minute. Today, it'll be late day clouds. But at least we had some blue sky to enjoy. And boy, it's frosty, wasn't it, this morning? A lot of really cool patterns I'm sure you saw in your windshield as you got out there this morning. We're still quite cold, 25 in Louisville, 19 in Salem, 24 into E-Town. Should climb a good, I would say, 15 to 20 degrees in several spots here today. So a nice little jump thanks to the sun and the dry air. All right, we're quiet here, so let's get right into what is going to unfold, because there have been some changes here for the upcoming weekend. First off, you see the high clouds in the last couple of frames as the sun is able to light up the clouds this morning back into the Ozarks, into western Tennessee. That is, again, our system developing. Yeah, the leading edge of this, we are going to be watching that could have still that brief window of a mix as this arrives late tonight. I'm thinking right now this is going to be more of an issue of, say, around St. Louis, Indianapolis, and Cincinnati. I don't see it being within our counties. Of course, we'll watch that this evening in case there is a bit of an overlap. But it's important to stress it would be a very temporary issue, and you will likely be asleep when it happens. You wouldn't even notice. But either way, always have to account for those finer details, right? You can tell the radar is busy. Now, we don't have the ability to see all areas in the Intermountain West because of an obvious reason. We have mountains. So we have a lot of different radar beams located throughout the Rockies, but they can't see the entire system. But you have to imagine that this is just widespread rain and snow that you're looking at moving in across the Rockies. This is where the system is stretching its legs and moving right into the Ohio Valley. This will be the precursor to allowing for the rain to really expand as we head into the day on Saturday. This chilly rain that develops, heavy at times, will be from this first phase. The second part is still going to be what's going to develop here in Texas, and this will be the low pressure will then move right along, I would say, close to the Mississippi-Arkansas line and may very well track very close to Louisville as we head into tomorrow night. The two at the same time working together prolong the event. The best way I can describe it is almost like a fire hose, or what's the I feel like I've made this reference before and I can't think of the name of it. It's on Family Guy, but it's the inflatable thing at car dealerships. You know what I'm talking about. This is how the heavy rain will be. Basically, it'll kind of wave back and forth across Kentucky and Tennessee. And we're trying to figure out how much of a wiggle will that be, because that will determine who ends up staying in the heavy rain the longest and therefore runs into more issues with flooding. At times, though, it may waver to your south. And I think Indiana, you have the better opportunity to see that during the day on Saturday. You may get a small break. And then central Kentucky, it may waver back north to give you guys maybe 2 to 3 hours mid-Saturday evening of a break. But in general, we will be impacted by this system 100% as it moves on by. It's going to happen as it moves into the area. We just got to figure out the residency time each time it does a pass through wave country. And if it doesn't have much of a back and forth motion to it at all, then we're in trouble, because some of these higher totals that some of the data has been trying to hint at will become a little more of the reality. All right, more on that in a second. Here are the flood watches that are out. This is a combination, too, that we've had of recent rain events, recent snow, but also just where the two waves are coming together will be the Tennessee and the Ohio River valleys, leading to the flash flooding, which is the type of flooding not only affects the creeks and streams like the Beargrass Creek, but also urban and street flooding, hydroplaning, traveling on the Waterston, I-65 around the outer loop. You guys know that's a low-lying area. One of the lowest lying areas in the city of Louisville is that area. So those are the spots we got to really watch for that rapid rise of streams and creeks. But river flooding also will take place a little slower, a few hours slower, and then the Ohio will likely react as well as we head down the road. So it's multiple ways of getting to flooding terms there, just different time periods and rate of when it happens. But just about everyone has been included. Now, there has been one small change from yesterday. They decided to expand the flood watch rural counties north. Now, what's interesting about that is there was a lot of debate yesterday on whether or not any Indiana counties would stay in the flood watch as the trend was more south. Well, since you've been asleep, starting really the mid-evening runs last night, the trend to bring the higher totals back north started to take place. And I'm still seeing hints of that with the midday data now. The midday data is in yet, so I'll look at that for the midday show coming up. But there's no doubt there is a signal there that there has been some shifting back to the north. So Indiana, you're far from out of the woods on this. And to be honest, Bedford and to Seymour, North Vernon, you guys could also see yourselves added to the flood watch. This is something we don't show very often. It's the extreme rainfall outlook from the Weather Prediction Center. It has categories that are similar to the Storm Prediction Center outlooks of slight and marginal, slight, moderate, and high. Only thing it's missing is enhanced on the scale. You don't often get a moderate. It doesn't happen very often this far out. We had one 3 days ago for this event, so it's kind of like an SPC outlook of a storm threat a week away. It just don't happen very often. This one's had one for a while. And they've been fluctuating with this. Yesterday, the moderate stopped right along the Ohio River around Louisville. Today, they have pushed it back north into southern Indiana, hence why the flood watch was expanded. But what is interesting about this is that they are debating on the rare upgrade of going to a high. Now, if I had to guess where they would draw a high risk, I would think right now it's going to be roughly in this area of Kentucky, our southwest counties down toward western Tennessee. That, to me, is an area to watch. There could be an upgrade to a high. We do not see that very often. Maybe twice I can recall since I've even worked here at Wave that I've seen that happen. So it's a big deal when that happens. And I'm hoping with it being a weekend that there's not going to be a lot of people on the roads. Everyone's gotten the message that this is coming, and you can just kind of anchor down at home. Don't have to travel in this mess, especially when the heaviest will likely be at night. Can't see where this is going. Especially some of these outlying roads, very difficult to see if water's flowing over. You can get mudslides on some of these interstates where they're cut through some of the hills and the mountains, if you will. The more east you travel, but and they cut through there, you get a lot of that mudslide action that can flow down right into the interstate. A little more common as you head east of Louisville, but it can happen even in parts of central Kentucky. So just be careful. Pay attention to your basement, your roofs. Make sure everything is going okay because our yards and infrastructure just really haven't had this heavy of a soaking of rainfall in a while. So if there's any problems that have developed in your home and your yard, boy, they're going to show with this setup as we head into Saturday and Saturday night. All right, looking at the rain chances in general. I'm going to show you a map of this too coming up in just a second. At least I think I put it in. I say that and I'm like, wait a minute, did I even put one in? You know what? I don't think I did. Hold on. Let me show you the chances, then I'll show you the map version here because I want you guys to see that. Hang tight for me here. Let's see. We'll do. Yeah, I'll put it right here. Okay, let's cover the chances first because I think this is an overall time period, and I'm really going to say this is more for Louisville. Okay, so I'll show you a map to where hopefully you can kind of pinpoint your location based on what I'm about to show you. But this is Saturday's time period. This starts before the sun comes up tomorrow and ends around just before midnight. So as we start the day on Saturday, we're going to start quickly on getting the rain expanding over the area, again, mainly from that flow coming in from the Rockies, California. That will enhance the rainfall rates throughout the day on Saturday. There's a small little dip into the evening hours. That's when the low pressure out of Texas will move in. Could shut the rain off completely for an hour or two. Not very long, but small little break. Wouldn't surprise me. That's also when the thermometer will rise. At that point, we then get into some of the heaviest that will take place, and that will be between the mid to late evening window tomorrow night. Why are they red? Well, the red is when we think at that point, if you start getting thunderstorms on the radar, in general, rain is going to be heavy. Don't get me wrong. But when you start to have very heavy rainfall all day like this, again, the precursor that's in place, then you get the heavy rain from the low pressure itself moving in. At that point, if we have problems with flooding in the area, they're really going to be exacerbated, and you're going to hear about it. You're going to hear about it. You're going to see the problems. And there's also a low-end chance from some stronger storms, so that threat is low. That's also the window we need to watch. If we didn't have this first wave moving over us during the day Saturday, we would only have the low pressure itself from Texas to deal with. And that would have been a lot easier on the flooding side, but it would have been a lot more damaging on the severe weather side of things. So I don't know, there's a good way to really spin this here, but that's the storyline we got. Now let me show you how this is going to look on the map form. And again, pay attention to where you're at on your spot there, your backyard from north to south. It's hard to probably even see some of the city names because there are so many areas of rain on the radar. Let me take this full screen. This will probably be easier for you all. Okay, here we go. 7 o'clock in the morning. Pockets heavier rain have moved in. This is a cold rain too. I mean, you can see why we were so close to this being something on the wintry side, but there's so much warm air aloft that, yeah, that's not going to happen. But if you're traveling into Ohio or northern Indiana, just be weather aware. It could be frozen still in that area. But for us, it will be a cold rain and a heavy rain at that. 37 degrees, heavy rain. We get to noon tomorrow. Now, here's where we start to get at least a little bit of an ease that tries to develop as we head into midday tomorrow. We'll see how much of that in Indiana you guys can relax a bit for an hour or two. It's possible. The rest of us locked in on the heavy rain moving through. Let's advance this. Let's go to the evening time period, 5 o'clock into Saturday. Just when everyone's got the rain, and now it's starting to pick up a little bit heavier. And notice the thermometers are starting to go up now into the 50s by 5 p.m. as we head into Saturday evening. Let me keep going. Now, this is where we really get into the core of the heaviest of all. And if we're going to be hearing about roads being closed or high water issues, flood advisories, flash flood warnings that could be triggered, your phone could activate because of some of these alerts into Saturday night. Now we're entering the window where that's going to start to become more of an issue. And as we head into the evening hours, it's lopsided on the warmer part of the day. We will likely get our high temperature as we head into the late evening hours. Now, this model here has got 47 degrees at 9:30. I think we'll be in the 50s. Some of the most recent data has even tried to bring in low to mid 60s into central Kentucky. That's not good, because when that low is moving on by, that's when you can get your thunderstorms that can develop in our southern counties, and some could be on the strong side. It's a nocturnal event, always a dangerous time to have it. It would happen fast. There's only about a 3-hour window that if there's anything that's severe that can develop, it would happen in that area of Kentucky, but it's not guaranteed. There's a lot of data against it, more than for it, a lot of data. So that's good. In fact, there's more data arguing against it than what we had last week when that tornado potential came into play. So let's hope that trend holds. But if this trends, the whole entire low pressure itself tries to pull back north even more than what it's trying to do in the most recent data runs, then we'll have a little more of a concern on the severe weather side. Either way, heavy rain still is the headline. As we get into the overnight hours, into early on Sunday, still pouring heavy rain. And then by the time we get into at least Monday morning, the heaviest of the rain should be out of here. But now we got strong winds in the area. It's going to be very windy. And then we get ready for all this to go to a thumping of snow, although the ground's going to be waterlogged and we will not be below freezing initially. So a lot of the snow will have a tough time sticking. But if you're north of Louisville, Salem, Bedford, Indiana, you could get a quick little coating of snow before it melts away quickly. But in general, I think it's going to be snow showers pretty much all day on Sunday for everyone. Okay, the models here. I'm not sure what's going on with the Canadian model, the yellow, so ignore that. These models fall off because they're short-term models. That's why they have a drop. You don't lose rainfall after it falls. It looks like the models take away the rain. That doesn't happen. Pay attention to the peaks. That's the important part. And you can see that there's a lot of agreement on a 2 to 4 inch trend here on the models, just for Louisville only. Let me show you what it looks like on the map form. This is the most recent run of the HER. It is right there at about 3 to 4, even 5 inches. Yesterday, this model was aiming for our southern counties, and there are still some models that are aiming for our southern counties to have the highest of totals. But there has no doubt been a trend on trying to breed in 4, 5, even close to 6 inch totals, a little closer to the Ohio River. If this trend continues today on the midday model runs, then I'm going to be much more concerned on the impacts in the Louisville metro, especially because of an urban street mapping type of setup. The drains have so many more limits to them, so you end up with more of the viaducts that go underwater. Street flooding becomes an issue. We have a lot of smaller streams in this area that can get out of their banks. The Beargrass Creek being one, the Salt River, the Floyd's Fork area, that can really get high. So pay attention to the rainfall. If we end up with more than 3.5 inches of rain in Louisville for tomorrow, that would be a record for the date and would be up there as one of the top rain events ever in February. So it is one it's got to be watched carefully. And that rainfall, again, you got to think of that wavering a bit. If it focus more in southern Kentucky. Yeah, you guys get hit hard, not as hard into Indiana and along the river. But if this trend north keeps happening, then we will focus the heavier rain back into the metro. Now, you're probably going to ask, you probably already have, is it going to keep going north towards Indianapolis? No, this thing's got a limit to it. It's getting pushed. It's like someone behind it pushing it down the hallway real fast. So it's got a limit. It can only go so far north because of someone behind it pushing it along, which will be our next system coming our way. So it can't go too much for the north than what is indicated, but it does have the ability to at least get all the way into the Louisville area and along the Ohio River. So significant flooding, guys. I mean, this is a big deal. I think overall we're having to do a range right now of like 2 to 6 inches. And I know it's a very wide range with huge impacts on one number versus the other. But for right now, this is common to see this almost like in a snow forecast. You're going to see a little bit of wobbling here now that high res can see it. And one of the bigger issues of why it adjusts is thunderstorms. If it starts to see thunderstorms a little better than what it did before, those rates start to go up higher. And that skews the numbers. So that's one of the changes that you'll have compared to previous days. Models can't see that very well. High res is so important in these scenarios. So the impact on the area rivers, well, this is just an estimate right now that we're getting on potential stages as we head through the next several days into next week. And notice Kentucky River is still forecast at least estimate to get up to major levels. And now the Ohio is showing up, especially the upper gauge, potentially could get into the moderate category. Salt River, Floyd's, or the Rolling Fork could be a little more impacted. No doubt if that heavier rain band sets up closer to the Ohio River, yes, the Ohio River is going to go up. So travel impacts there will need to be watched. Snow showers, you bet, will be around on Sunday. Falling temperatures all day long. Cold wind. Don't see a lot of accumulation here on Sunday, but it wouldn't take much to get a quick coating here and there. That ain't surprise me. I'm not going to say no accumulation. I don't think that's fair. I think some accumulation can happen here on Sunday because it's going to be cold and blustery day. But what worries me about Sunday is not only the snow showers, but it's the idea that we could drop to about 15 to 20 by Monday morning. All this flooding that has happened, all that water now is going to freeze and lock up. And we're not going to get above freezing again once we drop below it on Sunday for at least a week. Very unusual setup. I was trying to think last night if I could recall an event, because usually you go through an Arctic blast, you freeze the ground up, and then you warm and get a heavy rain event. That is usually how this goes. But you're in a thawing pattern at that point. It's not very often that you end up with a heavy rain and then you get an Arctic blast right after that. That doesn't happen as often. So there's a lot of unknowns here on this, but it no doubt can cause some issues with ice that could be an issue, not just for Monday morning, but we could have icy patches in the roads every single day next week, just from the flooding alone. If you end up with a flooded yard, your backyard, it will become an ice rink, and it'll stay that way for a while. So we need to watch this carefully. There's a chance we have to do an alert day on Monday morning just because of the icy patches that could be on the area roads. But we'll take that one step at a time. We got to get to the flooding part first, and then we'll tackle that a little more down the road. Next week, yes, the snow potential is there as early as Tuesday night. It will begin to arrive. I'm still not seeing a lot of data indicating this is going to be a big snow. There's multiple waves that move on by. One that moves through, then another one, and we get a backlash, almost like a clipper type of flow that comes into the area. It still likes the East Coast location of a storm idea by next Thursday. I think that does match the teleconnections a bit more. That would favor that idea. But here's the thing. It is going to be so cold again next week, highs in the teens, as you're about to see, that the snow ratios will be high. So even though it doesn't look overly heavy on this model, you could still get a few to several inches out of this as it moves on by. And again, it's not going anywhere, as you're about to see on some of these numbers coming in. In fact, let's get right to it. Let me show you that 10-day if you want to see it. All right, 41 today, 56. Again, that 56 will be tomorrow night. The warmest part of the day will be at night. A little opposite there. And then as we get into Sunday, there we go with the at 32, it'd be about noon. We should be about 25 or so in the afternoon. So getting cold and colder and colder as we head into Sunday night. And then we'll have to watch to see how much ice could form Sunday night into Monday. And then there we go with the snow chances. And yeah, single digits. And the data still wants to take these numbers lower than what I have shown here. And I didn't think we would see anything close to what would rival what we had in January. I feel like I'm eating my words on this one if this plays out, because this may very well repeat what we had in January. So we'll see. Not so much on the snow side, but on the cold side, you bet. It could take a while to get thawed out. So there you go. A lot of stuff, guys. A lot of stuff. So there's going to be a lot of changes here, as you guys can imagine. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of players on the field. So the outcome is going to keep evolving. So I can't stress, you're going to have to keep staying close to the forecast and the forecast changes, because it will change. But the overall themes I just laid out for you of the heavy rain, the snow chances, the freeze, the bitter cold, those players are all there for the 10-day. It's the finer details that will matter, but we're not able to answer them out. That's why we get these alert days out. We try to anyway, in enough advance to give you guys a heads up of change coming our way. But there's a chance that next week could really flood in with several different alert days. All right. Try not to depress you on a Friday, everybody. Enjoy this Valentine's Day. Hug your loved ones, even if it's your little puppy, and give them some love too. And I will see you guys coming up on midday as more of that midday data begins to roll in. Take care, guys. See you soon.